Beautiful. Good to go there. Well,
Don't say anything stupid.
right. You are now being recorded. I was going to say we had 3 people that actually logged in an hour ago, so I know there's people coming. Because I get the email that they've joined my Zoom, and I'm like, well, that's great. But
You're
it's
just
not
a little
an
early.
hour, right? That whole time zone thing. All the good stuff. All the good stuff. Happens all the time. All right, we're going to go in there. We'll put some things in the chat. Yeah, it's starting to rain kind of heavy here in Wisconsin. So I think it'll just be a cold fall evening.
It's not raining at my house.
Ugh. What are you, 4 hours north of me?
Oh, only a little shy of 3.
Well, it was like 85 degrees here where we were today.
Ugh.
And sunny. It's a hot day. A little unexpected, but beautiful nonetheless.
I was just going to say, I suppose you don't get snow or anything.
We do not get snow. Maybe a little hail here and there, but that's about
The
it.
mountains we get some.
Yeah. And within a hour drive, there's some snow.
Oh, well, that's not bad then.
No.
Not bad at all. All
No,
right.
we're like a 5 to 10 minute drive down to Newport Beach.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so good place to be.
I'm a 5-minute drive from the Mississippi River, but I'm not going to swim in it. It's a little disgusting. Just saying. Just saying. All right. Well, without further ado, we'll get started. I just answered a couple messages here from people to hop in. So perfect. All righty. So everybody want to get on board. Let me quick reply to these guys with their links so they know. All right. I just shared the link back over. All right. So we have Chaz and Zach joining us from Pet Business Insurance. I always want to say insurers, but it's insurance. I was practicing this earlier. So I met you gentlemen 2 years ago now, I believe, at one of course, the fabulous conferences that we participate in the dog industry. And I know in listening to you talk, I've followed your podcast quite a bit. There's lots of things that actually go on in the insurance world that most of us are like, oh, it's just insurance. But you guys have kind of taken the time, delved in quite a bit into the pet care industry that is now your specialty, your niche, so to speak. So I am excited to hear a little bit more about whether or not I am protected. 2, things that I can do to avoid nightmares. And 3, I'm sure you're going to tell me things that I'm going to go, huh, good thing it hasn't happened to me yet. So without further ado, claims and nightmares, real pet business horror stories, and how to avoid them. So gentlemen, please walk us through all the good details of insurance in the pet daycare and boarding industry.
All right. Well, to get started and give you guys a little bit of background, we're second generation insurance agents. Our mom started a business over 21 years ago, and we've been focusing on the pet space now for about 11 years. And pet space is in we serve our main niche, as you mentioned, Eve, is pet related businesses. So dog daycares, grooming salons, mobile groomers, veterinary clinics, pet food and toy treat manufacturers, etc. So if you are running and own a pet related business, we are the ones to supply the insurance.
Perfect. So Zach mentioned earlier, we've been in the business for a long time. To give you guys a little bit of a background, and Zach maybe want to tell the story a little bit of how we kind of found this industry. I think it's a really helpful story to kind of talk about why we got into it and the need for it. Zach, you want to share a little bit about how you found the need for somebody specializing in insurance for dog daycares and boarding facilities.
Yep. So this was about 10 years ago. I had gotten a new pup, rescued him, and my wife and I both work full-time jobs. So we were taking our dog to a local dog daycare, a Dogtopia here in Southern California, and picking up and dropping off the dog every day. I got to know the owner of that Dogtopia franchise location. And one thing led to another. I got the opportunity to review the insurance policy. And in reviewing the insurance policy, I noticed that there was some really important insurance coverage that was missing from that policy. One of those being an animal Bailey's or an animal floater insurance coverage. So that takes care or insures the pets that are in your care if you own the dog daycare facility. And if the pet was to get injured, escape, whatever the situation, this is the insurance coverage that actually pays for replacement of the pet or the veterinary expenses. So probably one of the most important insurance coverages that a dog daycare should have. So I was reviewing their insurance policy, noticed that coverage was missing, and got the opportunity to provide some recommendations. A replacement insurance policy, got the opportunity to provide them with my recommendations. And the insurance cost to have this coverage, plus some other things that was missing, was actually less expensive than their current policy. And it was like an aha moment. I had asked the owner who they had gotten insurance coverage from. They had gotten insurance coverage from a random agent. There's millions of agents across the nation that can provide insurance coverage. And they were just using an agent who knows a little bit about business insurance, but not somebody that specialized in the industry. So I started to do a little bit of digging, got the opportunity to work with another Dogtopia, somebody I met in the Chamber of Commerce, my local Chamber of Commerce. Same exact situation, reviewed her insurance policies. She was missing the same coverage, animal Bailey's coverage. Repeat that same process, was able to provide her with my recommendations and provided the coverage, filled some of the gaps of coverage that were missing in her insurance policy at a better rate. And that's when the light bulb went off, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to focus on this pet related businesses. And here we are 11 years later with thousands of business owners in the pet space across the nation.
Perfect. So we're going to jump in. The whole idea of this presentation is just to quickly overview the different insurance coverages that you should have as a pet business owner. So we're not going to dig deep, but we're going to kind of take it surface level. We're going to go through by each coverage types. Now you have to remember, these insurance companies, they write their policies. They have the best attorneys. So they write their policies very, very specific. So their complex policy, you could, take a look at your policy, open it up, and it could be a couple hundred pages. And there's all these exclusions and things. So that's where we come in. We understand the policies, the way the policies are written and how exactly they're written. So we're going to jump into a little bit of a PowerPoint here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in now. And then as we get going, we'll probably get to those at the end. So let's switch over here and let's see here. All right, we should be able to see that. All right, so
we're wearing the same outfits.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's good. All right, Zach's going to take it away from here. Go ahead, Zach.
All right, so first question, should I be insured? I'm sure you can all guess the answer to that. Absolutely, yes. If you're in business, you need insurance coverage. Insurance coverage is going to be your first line of defense if anything were to happen in your business. So whether that's a customer slips and falls when they walk in the front door, a pet escapes, a pet gets injured during a groom or during playtime, insurance coverage is going to be your first line of defense to cover that expense.
So before we get into each line, Zach, can you maybe talk a little bit about how insurance companies, like what's the purpose of insurance coverage, and how do, all these dog daycare owners are probably going to be asking, like, why does my insurance cost go up? Or why am I paying more than Johnny down the street? Can you maybe talk a little bit about how insurance companies identify risks and what the purpose of insurance is?
The purpose of the insurance policy is to protect you, the business owner, from financial loss. Insurance companies or agents that you're working with, when they put together your insurance package, should be tailoring a policy specific to your business and your business needs. Your facility or your business is different than the person down the street or another competitor in town. For example, the sales, the revenue of the business might be different. The one daycare facility might own the building, another might rent. One might invest a lot of money in the improvements of the facility and the property. One might have more employees than the other, et cetera. So your insurance policy should actually be tailored to your exact needs. And again, your needs are going to be completely different as a single owner with 2 employees than potentially a 5-location facility with 75 employees.
So the other question that I have is, how so if the industry, so let's say the boarding daycare industry, if they have lots of claims and these claims are costly, what's going to happen to insurance rates, and how do the insurance companies identify those risks?
So the rates are going to go up if there's more claims. So the insurance companies are just financial investment firms. What they're looking to do is collect a premium and pay less out in claims. And so what they're looking at their policies across the nation to determine what they should be charging for their insurance rates. So more claims, higher insurance rates. Whether those are weather-related claims, whether they're work comp claims, employees getting injured on the job, the more claims you have, or the more claims the industry has overall, the rates will go up over time.
Perfect. All right, so we got a high-level view of that. So now we're going to go through and kind of talk about the essential lines of insurance. So a lot of people are under the assumption that my general liability policy covers me for everything that happens under the sun, and that's simply not the case. So we're going to go and look through each essential kind of like lines of available insurance, and Zach's going to kind of like talk us through some of those. So here we go. Here's the kind of general overview. So we'll start with the first one. Zach, if you want to talk about general liability.
Yeah. So overall, these are again like some of the general insurance coverages that a business owner should carry. The first policy, most important policy, is going to be a general liability insurance policy. It's going to be your first line of defense against claims related to bodily injury, property damage, or advertising. To boil that down and to make it a little bit more simple to understand, I run a dog daycare, and Chaz walks in the door, slips on some water, falls down, and gets injured. Well, he's injured on my facility, so therefore I'm liable for those damages. So the general liability policy is going to be what's going to cover it's going to cover your facility if the client gets injured, not the pets. The client actually gets injured.
Perfect. Okay, next line we're going to go to is professional liability.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Is there a certain dollar amount that we should look at when we're looking at that amount of liability? So like if I own my building, should I have a higher dollar amount than somebody who doesn't own their building as far as the general liability goes?
In most cases, the general liability is not like a limit you can, as the consumer, can really set.
Okay.
There's preset coverage amounts, whether that's $500,000 per occurrence, a $1 million general aggregate or total amount, a $1 million each occurrence limit, a $2 million total aggregate limit or a total amount, and a $2 million, $4 million. $2 million per occurrence, a $4 million general aggregate. So those are pretty much preset coverage amounts that are offered by the insurance companies. You can buy higher liability coverage limits, but through a umbrella or an excess liability policy. So really what an umbrella or excess liability is it's just
On top
an
of.
extension of those underlying limits of the underlying policies. Now, in most cases, majority of people probably have a $1 million each occurrence limit and a $2 million general aggregate. That's where most insurance companies will start on the general liability coverage.
Sure.
It really depends on the assets of the business, though. You know, as the business gets larger, you want to increase your liability limits. You've got more to lose. When we're talking with somebody who's opening a new facility and they're going to be a tenant at the facility, pretty much all the time they're going to have insurance requirements that they need to fulfill in order to get that lease for that location. So
Yep, good
again,
point.
in most cases, upwards of 60-70% of the time, the insurance requirements are $1 million each occurrence, a $2 million general aggregate. Now, those of you that are buying into a franchise, the franchisor might have certain liability insurance requirements that we need to meet as well.
Perfect. So most common we see is 1 million, 2 million. So Zach, why don't we jump in a little bit on the
Thank you for that.
professional liability?
Yeah, absolutely. So the professional liability insurance coverage is going to cover you, the business owner, for rendering your professional service. Really, what does that mean? Let's say you're a grooming salon or your facility offers grooming. Your groomer is actually considered a professional. And so if a pet was injured during the groom, professional liability is the insurance portion of the insurance policy that's going to pay for those damages. And we've seen the professional liability coverage pay out for dog daycares that have pets in their care, and they might be administering medication to the pets. So we've seen some terrible things. One example comes to mind where a dog daycare attendant doubled the insulin dose of a dog in their care.
I think it was like quadrupled.
Yeah, the pet was in the emergency vet for 3 days and under care. It was a very expensive issue. The professional liability portion of the insurance policy covered that, which is due to their negligence.
Perfect. We're going to jump on to the next popular one, animal Bailey's coverage.
So animal Bailey's is a big one. The way that the coverage forms reads here is this protects the pets that are in your care, custody, or control. So if you're a dog daycare facility that offers grooming and the pet's injured during the groom, that's going to fall under the professional liability portion of the insurance policy. But two pets get in a fight during the play area, it's going to be considered the animal Bailey's portion of the insurance policy. It can pay for pets that are lost, that die in your care, or injured in your care. So for some of those grooming salon owners, there's two different insurance coverages that every salon should have. And that's professional liability, which covers the pets during the groom, and then animal Bailey's coverage, which covers the pets in your care. Pretty much anything outside of the groom is how I explain that. So a pet escapes the front door, the animal Bailey's is going to be the portion of the insurance policy that's going to pay for those damages.
Yeah, we see, obviously lots of these claims, but a lot of times you don't realize like how expensive these can be. We've had some claims where dogs are playing, running around, dog basically, tears a ACL, right? Or we've had one that the dog jumped off of something and like fractured a vertebrae, which, was, tens of thousands of dollars in vet care. So we'll jump on over next to the property coverage portion.
So property insurance coverage could cover the building if you own the building, or if you're in a triple net lease. It's going to cover your equipment, inventory, and your tenant improvements that you may have done to your facility. So let's say I'm going to open a new dog daycare, and I go and I find the location, the perfect location. I'm going to open my business here, but the business is just concrete floor. There's nothing built out. There's no separation.
Or kennels,
no separation from the clients to where the dogs play. So we might have to do some improvements, build out some walls, build out some kennels,
put some grass in maybe.
Yeah, put some turf in, etc. The property insurance coverage is going to cover those tenant improvements that you did. It's going to cover any inventory if you've got a retail portion of your facility, and cover all your inventory, tools and equipment as well. And then those of you that own the building, the property insurance coverage can cover the building as well. And we're seeing an increase in the triple net leases, which a triple net lease, you don't own the building, but the lease requires you to actually insure the building. And so in most cases, when I talk about property coverage, well, do you own the building or not? And that determines whether I need to provide coverage for the building, or are you in a triple net lease or not? And then we'll typically talk about the tenant improvements. So what did you spend when you opened your facility? Have you done some remodeling when you're a tenant? And then the property coverage. Pretty much if you took the business personal property, if you take the building and turn it upside down, everything that hits the ceiling is going to be considered your business personal property. And the next one we're going to talk about is inland marine coverage. This is going.
I'm going to pick your brain again.
Yeah.
So you had talked about how your landlord might, require you to have that insurance. Where is it that, so I had a landlord, I own my building now, but previously he was like, well, I need to make sure that I'm listed on your insurance. Is that where they need to be listed on the insurance?
Yeah, so that's referring to the liability portion of the insurance policy. So in majority of leases, they're going to say, hey, in order for you to get the keys to the facility before you're opening, you need to provide us with proof of general liability insurance coverage.
Correct.
You need to meet these insurance requirements that are outlined in our lease, and then you need to name us as additional insured on the insurance policy and provide a certificate of insurance outlining that. What does that mean? Well,
that is the $1 million question.
Yeah. What does additional insured mean? Does that mean that they own the insurance policy or whatever?
Right.
No, really what happens is in the event there's a lawsuit. So Chaz walks into my door of my facility. He slips and falls, hits his head. Well, my business is going to get named in the lawsuit.
I'm going to sue the property owner too, just because,
And the property owner. So attorney's going to come in and they're going to go, all right, we're going to serve everybody that we possibly can in this lawsuit. And so that's the purpose of the landlord saying, hey, we want to be named as additional insured. All it does is it extends your liability coverage to then also defend that building owner.
Gotcha.
In a lawsuit. So, yeah.
So our insurance would kick in way before their insurance would kick in.
Exactly. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Kind of like when you're driving somebody else's car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's that chain of command that kind of like, okay, first we do you, then we do you, and then we get to this one. So
one is primary and another is secondary. But yeah, when we're looking at leases and somebody's opening a new facility, we'll often say, hey, before you sign the lease, let's review it together. Let's find out what sort of insurance requirements we need to meet. Because the requirements can be all over the place. We see some in San Francisco and older, more commercial spaces where they want $10 million of liability insurance coverage, and it's a small facility. We're just opening up. We have zero revenue right now. I can't just pay $20,000 a year in liability coverage right off the bat. So what we like to do with our clients when they're opening a new location is before you sign that lease, let's review your insurance requirements of the lease. Let's review the lease together. We'll go over the insurance portion and find out what this landlord or property management company is requiring us to have. In 99% of the cases, it's general liability insurance coverage, 1 million, 2 million liability limits, additional insured status for the property owner and property management company. And then a lot of times they will also require you to have property insurance coverage. We want you to cover your inventory. We want you to have business income protection. That way, if there's a fire at the facility and you're unable to operate, we're still going to get rent because we're insuring your loss of revenue. If you're closed, you're not going to have revenue coming in. Well, the insurance policy can provide insurance coverage for that to make sure rent's still getting paid.
It's always a good idea whenever you're looking at a location, you're negotiating a lease. I mean, there's times where they have insurance requirements that don't make sense that you go back and say, hey, you know what? We don't feel like this is, and this should be a requirement. because a lot of times they'll just copy and paste a lease from somewhere, throw it in there and have you sign it. And you're like, this doesn't apply to what we do, you know? And so that's kind of why we say, hey, there's been many times where we jump on and we'll be like, hey, they probably shouldn't require you to have this coverage, you know, and they go back and they'll, you know, exit, you know, redline it through the lease. So.
Sure. No, and that's perfect because same thing in one of my buildings I rented. I was like, this doesn't seem right to me. And the person who had been in that office was an exotic pet store. So like, you know, the landlord required a lot of extra things because they had like tarantulas and just all sorts of crazy stuff in there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do dog training, like little different. So yep. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you for answering that.
some attorney draws up the insurance requirements typically and that lease, and they'll use blanketed language and blanketed coverage limits where completely outlandish stuff. So they ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars. We review them, we go back to them and bring them back to reality.
We love that. Saves us money.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back here to.
And so we touched on the property coverage. Inland marine is an extremely outdated term. Really, all it means is it's property coverage that for tools and equipment that travel around with you. So this coverage applies to all of our mobile pet groomers. You've got tools, equipment, inventory, product that goes from job site to job site with you. So in layman's terms, inland marine coverage is really just property coverage that leaves your business location. In most cases, people don't understand that their property coverage only applies to their business location or within 1,000 feet of that business location. So those of you that are doing offsite events and taking property with them, you want to make sure that you have one of two coverages, either off premises business personal property or inland marine coverage, which again just means off premises business property coverage. I touched on this a little bit with the lease, which is business income business income protection. So a lot of leases will require you to carry business income protection. And really, this is to help cover your loss of revenue in the event there's a claim and you're unable to operate your facility. So you've got your dog daycare location, there's a fire at the facility, and now you're unable to operate and you're shut down for some duration of time. Either you're going to go rent another location, or you're going to be closed down for a month to 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, while construction's being done and the facility's being repaired. You're going to have a loss of revenue. You're not going to be able to operate. So this insurance coverage is going to make sure that money's still coming in the door to cover your overhead, whether that's payroll expenses, your rent, etc.
Let me give you examples, Zach. So let's say I've got my dog daycare boarding facility and the sprinkler line bursts and floods the whole thing. And I call somebody out to repair it, and it's going to take 3 months, and I don't have a place to keep dogs. So how does this work? What does it look like?
Well, you could use that income replacement to rent another facility for the duration of you being shut down. And this coverage would pay for those additional business expenses. Or B, if you're not going to operate and you need to be shut down for those 3 months, this is the insurance policy, insurance coverage that's going to replace your loss of revenue. So your facility generates $100,000 a month in revenue. You're closed down for 3 months. You're out $300,000. This insurance coverage is going to replace that $300,000.
Perfect.
What if you're just getting into the business, so you don't have an idea of revenue? Should you just go off of what you think your revenue is going to be for a year?
The insurance policy is going to be based, most policies read, and it depends on the size of the business. Most policies for business income is a 12-month protection and it's actual loss sustained. So you're going to have to supply some sort of proof of funds coming in, whether that's like your appointment book. Let's say you're open for 3 months and something tragic happens and now you're shut down. Well, the insurance company is going to need to see, okay, your books for the last 3 months. This is what we've done. Here's all the appointments that we then had to cancel. This is the trend of uptick in revenue that we're seeing and what we were expecting. But yeah, if you're just starting out and you don't have any of that stuff, it's going to be a tough argument. And commercial auto insurance coverage, super important for those of you that are doing pickups and drop-offs. Our mobile groomers, their business is completely mobile and ran in most cases out of a van or truck and trailer situation. So you'll need commercial auto insurance coverage. For today's talk, most of the attendees being in the dog daycare space, you need commercial auto insurance coverage if you're doing pickups and drop-offs. We'll see from time to time people trying to use their personal insurance policy to run out, pick up some pets, bring them back to the facility, and drop them off after. And you're running a risk there.
So let's talk about this a little bit because a lot of people don't really understand, I think, the risk. And we have a lot of dog daycares here locally in California that they have huge fleets. I mean, we've got some dog daycares over here that have 12 to 14 commercial vehicles that we just see driving around picking up dogs all day. You don't really think about it, but it's probably one of the most risky things that you do. So you've got a 22-year-old driving a $50,000 Mercedes Sprinter, and the liability of you hitting a old lady
Nothing
in a
can go
crosswalk.
wrong there. 20-year-old driving somewhere, right? Like nothing could go wrong in that scenario.
Dogs in the van, or whatever the situation, distracting, jumping all over. And there's the few that Chaz is referencing around the area. They offer, pickups, drop-offs. They do some pack walks, training, etc. And the amount that I see where dogs are sitting in the front seat while the while the driver's driving down the road, it's like I see it almost every single day in my neighborhood. And so this is a huge liability. Your business is tied to those vehicles. So there's an accident. The auto insurance policy is what's going to provide coverage in the event it's a car accident, and provide protection for the overall business.
So I've heard people say, "Hey, I've got full coverage, so I'm fine, right?" So maybe you can talk about what is $1 million general liability commercial auto policy? How much does it? What happens if you go over? So give us an example of that.
So commercial auto policies, similar to a general liability policy, there's preset coverage amounts that you can select as the business owner, whether that's a
Okay.
$500,000 liability limit or a $1 million liability limit. So when that vehicle is driving down the road, your general liability stops at your facility pretty much. It stops at getting into a vehicle. If there's a moving vehicle, you need commercial auto insurance coverage. So let's say one of your attendants is doing pickup and drop-offs, rear ends a vehicle in front of them. That's going to be covered under your auto liability limits. And if you don't have enough insurance coverage for that, well, that's where one of those umbrella policies would come in and kick in and provide additional liability protection or additional defense and expenses.
The crazy part is
So-
to think we've had people that have very minimal coverage, right? So you're a big commercial facility, you're doing $1 million a year, you buy whatever agent sold you a $25,000 limit on your policy. So you hit, an older person, they are in a serious accident, they get hospitalized for 7 days. The most the insurance company is going to pay out is $25,000.
Whatever those policy limits are.
Whatever the limit is that you select is the most they're going to pay out.
Right.
So you get sued for, $1 million because the person was hospitalized for 7 days and your limit's 500,000. Well, they're going to pay out 500, but you're going to be named for the other 500.
Sure, sure. And
yeah.
when you're looking at who's driving your work vehicle, so they should obviously be listed on the insurance policy, or how does that all work?
Yes. Anybody who's driving the vehicle should be listed on the insurance policy as a driver. So anybody who's driving that vehicle, you should have them listed as a driver on the insurance policy. Again, these insurance companies are financial investment firms. So there's a contract in place between you and the insurance company. If the claim is big enough and the insurance company can get out of it, they will do what they can to get out of paying that claim. So I will see from time to time in a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm involved in for mobile grooming. Oh, my agent told me I don't need to list my drivers on the insurance policy. No, that is the worst advice I have ever heard. What do you think the insurance company is going to do when they find out that, oh, your 22-year-old employee that's had a prior DUI was driving the vehicle and they weren't rated on your insurance policy? Well, there's a reason
Right.
why they probably weren't rated on your insurance policy. It's because they wouldn't qualify for the insurance coverage because they had a prior DUI, or they got tickets and accidents, and you're going to pay a lot of money to have that young driver and on your insurance policy. So
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
don't like playing with gray areas with these insurance companies. They have the best attorneys. They have the resources. Follow the rules. Protect yourself the way that you should be protected. And then again, if there's a contract in place and everybody's abiding by the contract, then you're going to have the insurance coverage to protect your business.
One
And-
of the things that we recommend too is like when you're hiring, right? If you're going to have a driver, you want to
Yep.
ask them, how's your driving record? And that way, let's say they do lie on that driving record and you go to hire them to drive your van and you pull their record and you're like, hey, you have 2 accidents and, a DUI. I have to terminate you. I hired you to drive the vehicle. You told me you didn't. And then now you're
Right.
protecting yourself in employment practices liability lawsuit too.
Well, and as the business, you really need to think about your own, I mean, truly the liability of, you're just letting every staff member hop in your vehicle that you've purchased, driving your own animals that if, again, were to have an accident and an animal, dies, gets maimed, gets lost. I mean, so you do need to think about who it is that you're letting hop behind the wheel and represent your brand on top
Yeah.
of it all, right? Like
Yes.
you see that all the time. Like in my city, we have lacrosse stupid drivers Facebook page. And of course I'm a member because I want to see all the stupid drivers. And you'll see like company vehicles like getting their pictures taken, like parking badly, driving erratically, like just, crap being said about them. So having just anybody drive your logoed vehicle or transporting animals in your care is a liability on so many levels.
Yep, definitely represents your brand. I like to tell our clients before you hire somebody that's going to be a driver, get their authorization to run their motor vehicle report, call me up. Hey, Zach, I'm thinking about hiring this employee. What does this look like for them to be on my insurance policy? So that we know. We do some due diligence. We run their driving record. We make sure they're not 16 years old driving the vehicle. We make sure that there's not prior accidents, speeding tickets, and all that stuff to confirm they're a safe driver. But then also, so you as the business owner know financially, what is it going to impact me to have this person drive for my business? And
100%.
I see it all the time in the mobile grooming industry where it's like, oh, this is an outstanding groomer. They're the best groomer ever. I want to hire this person. I want to hire this person. And then we run their motor vehicle report and they've got 2 accidents and 2 speeding tickets in the last 12 months. And it's like, well, it's going to cost you $5,000 a month to have that person drive. They might be outstanding,
Right.
but does dollars and cents, does it make sense? Financially.
Absolutely.
So in that situation, if you really want that groomer, then they don't get driving privileges. Like,
There
yeah,
you go. They can ride in the back of the bus and just stick to what they know, right? You hire them a
yeah.
driver.
Right. The next topic we're going to bring up is probably a hot topic, especially in the boarding spot where we see tons of claims, tons of risk in here. So that's going to be workers' compensation. So Zach's going to jump into that.
So work comp coverage. Anybody that has employees should have work comp coverage, with exception of 4 different states across the nation. Anybody else that has employees should have insurance coverage. State by state, the rules are a little bit different. Like California, if you have 1 employee, it's mandatory that you have work comp insurance coverage, where that's not the case in Texas, for example. But work comp coverage is going to protect your employees if they get injured on the job. So somebody gets bit by a dog and needs a surgery or needs some medical attention, the work comp coverage is going to provide and pay for those medical expenses. And it's also going to cover any loss of wages that may result from those medical expenses.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the last coverage.
And just to go back to the work comp coverage, this is probably one of the bigger expenses when it comes to insurance in the dog daycare space, and why it's very important to work with someone like Dog Handlers Academy to make sure your employees are trained properly on handling the pets to reduce the overall risk. We'll see a lot of stuff where somebody might come in and they think, oh, I'm going to open a dog daycare facility. I'm just babysitting dogs all day. It's low risk, no big deal. And they come in, don't have any idea how to run a facility. And it puts your employees in danger. And then they get to the point where they're not able to even afford running their business because they have multiple insurance claims.
So let's in the end, and I'm going to pick your brain on ways to reduce our insurance premiums. So just wanted to throw that out there. So that's something that I know those of us at Dog Handler Academy are looking at ways that we can help our clients in reducing some of that insurance premium by having certifications and things like that. So
Perfect. Love it. Let's jump on to the last one here.
And this has been a hot topic, employment practices liability coverage. It's very important for you business owners that have multiple employees. This is going to protect you as the business owner against things for liability associated with you having employees. So things like wrongful termination or harassment in the workplace, discrimination or retaliation. Employment practices liability insurance coverage is going to protect you for that. Your general liability insurance coverage, auto liability, work comp do not cover any employment liability. So I work for Chaz and he terminates me because I was, for whatever reason, if he didn't have due cause to terminate me, I could then potentially go after him. Let's say he had some kind of discrimination or harassment against me and I wanted to pursue those, and he didn't have employment practices liability. In most cases, if there's evidence that he terminated me wrongfully, I could sue him and have a lawsuit against the business.
So a lot of people ask, well, I'm in an at-will state.
Yeah.
So I can terminate anybody for any reason at any time.
Sure. In an at-will state, yeah. But if there was some sort of harassment going on in the workplace between two employees and that was brought to a manager's attention and nobody did anything, well, this is where the insurance coverage would come in to play there.
Yep. So I always like to tell people this. You can always be sued for anything at any time. And the key is then how do you defend yourself? And
Right.
in the chat groups, and I'm sure you guys have seen them too, where people are like, yeah, I terminated an employee. And then 6 months later, all of a sudden, I get a letter from an attorney saying that I'm being sued for discrimination. And I like the employee only worked for us for 30 days or 9 days or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Anybody can accuse you of anything. And then now
Correct.
you've got to spend money defending yourself.
Right. Whether they have a leg to stand on or not, you still got to go hire representation. And so that's the employment practices liability coverage. Depending on your state, in most cases, you could get it in a business owner's package. So there's an insurance, most people in the industry are going to have a business owner's package, which is going to include all these things. Well, the liability, business property, business income, professional liability coverage, and you can get employment practices liability. Again, depends on the state, depends on like legislation in the state like California, anybody can get sued for anything, and so the employment
That's where
practices
all the
liability
attorneys
coverage.
live. All the attorneys live
Yeah,
in California.
yeah. Don't do business here.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's just that is the reality of it, is anybody can be sued for anything. And if anyone was on our webinar a week ago where April Goodwin was just saying, like, if they can, they will. And that's just the reality of it. But yeah, like the fact that you would have to fork out literally thousands of dollars to defend yourself. And I know of several dog daycare owners that have had frivolous lawsuits against them that it cost them $10,000 to $20,000 to defend themselves, and then they finally did win. But like just that process that you have to go
Yeah.
through and
The stress that it takes, the time that it takes away from your business. We got named in an ADA lawsuit years back. We were just renting a location. We were tenants in the building. Well, the building didn't have wheelchair access. And so somebody was driving through and decided to name, we're in a business, at the time we're in a business complex too. So there's 50 other businesses. They went through and they named every tenant in the
Oh
lawsuit
my gosh.
along with the building owner. And the building owner isn't going to defend us or do anything about it. I have no access, ability, rights to add a wheelchair access ramp in our facility or at our location. We still had to go to court to defend it.
Wow.
It still was $5,000 to defend that. And
That's crazy.
luckily, we had their general liability insurance that took care of that and didn't have to do much about it at all.
Yeah, if they can, they will.
Yep, absolutely.
And
even if they can't, they will.
Right? Yes, even if they can't, they will. Yeah, I always say about dogs. If they can, they will. Like that's just how it goes, right?
So let's talk about reducing risk.
So Eve, you had mentioned a little bit earlier, like what does the industry need to do? What do we need to do for our customers to help manage insurance premiums? We know in the dog daycare, especially on the workers' comp, it could be difficult. It's expensive. And so we're going to go over some of the best practices and things that you guys can do. Think about the insurance company. The insurance companies have a number. You're a dog daycare, you're a kennel, you're a boarding facility, you're assigned a specific number. And so when claims come about and they see that all these claims are coming from pet boarding facilities, that allows them to go and advocate for raising costs. So the more and more claims, the bigger the claims are that are tied to a dog daycare class code, they would call it. The insurance industry would call it a class code. The more and more expensive insurance rates are for everybody in that class code. So Zach's going to go through, talk a little bit about just simple ways to reduce risk that you guys should be thinking about, and we'll go from there.
So there's some easy things that you could do to reduce risk. A lot of it that we see, really one of the big things, there's one case that we're dealing with right now where a business was interviewing a new employee, a potential new employee, and the new employee got bit by a dog. Claim ended up paying $120,000 out, even though despite the person had very minimal injuries. But it's extremely important that you separate people that are your clients from the pet areas. You don't let them in there. Anybody that's not an actual employee of the business should not be accessing any of the areas where the pets are. So we've got a little thing on the slide here, like restricted area, authorized personnel only is a good way to run the facility to prevent just anybody walking in and getting injured by a pet or somebody that's not an actual employee of the business.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, think about this: the dog daycare owner was sued for $120,000 because it was a minor bite. Didn't even know he's being named in this lawsuit until 9 months after the small incident happened, and not even an employee. So we'll skip over here to number 2.
Go ahead.
So next is
I'm
cleaning
gonna
and
jump in for
sanitize.
1 second. So
Sure.
Yeah.
what about tours? Right? Like people that give in-person tours, they walk the people through, and it's really hard for people to keep their hands to themselves.
Yeah, everybody wants to pet the dogs, say hi. Well, if you're going to give a tour, make sure all the pets are separated from that person you're giving a tour. It's probably not a smart business practice overall to introduce that person to 20, 30 different dogs that are roaming in a play area. You don't know that person's level of comfort with various different types of breeds. And yeah, the pets should be secured or in a different area if you're going to give somebody a tour of the facility.
Yeah, and I would recommend, obviously, you want the customer to have their dog, feel safe for allowing their dog there. So what are safe ways that you can do it? Obviously, not throwing them in the middle of a pack during playtime is probably not a good spot, but is there ways to illustrate how your dog's being taken care of? Are there cameras that you can share? Or are there areas that maybe there's not dogs in that they can feel comfortable, like, checking out the kennels that they're in and things like that, where the customer's mind is at ease, but you're not opening them up to missing fingers, as we've
Right.
had a couple of those before too.
So, working interviews. Recommend everybody sign a waiver, liability form, that they understand that they're going in there. Like, do these things help us in those
The
situations?
liability waivers never hold up. If somebody gets
Okay.
injured at the facility, you're liable. You can't sign your rights away. So sure, they sound great, and a lot of people want to use them, but will they actually hold up in court if you end up in court for somebody getting injured? So after seeing I've dealt with 2 in the last 6 months, 2 different dog daycares that were interviewing, and the interviewee got bit. So they're not employees of the business. They didn't
Right.
get the workers' compensation coverage, didn't cover
Right.
them because they're not an active employee. The liability insurance portion of the insurance policy is what ended up paying for that. Now, it's from what we can see too, we're seeing stuff that if this person was a true actual employee, it might have been a $200-300 first aid only issue where that person got bit. They went down to a local clinic if they were your employee, for example, and it's a $200-300 insurance claim for them being bit. When they're not an employee, the
attorneys get a hold of
the
them.
attorneys get involved, and it tends to
Right.
be tens or $100,000.
I think both of those were 6 figures.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the last 6 months. And one of the cases too, what was so wild about it is we're working with the business owner, and during the process, we need to, when I'm underwriting an insurance policy, I need to see your prior claims history. So, have you had a claim? Yes, I've had a claim. Okay, well, let's get your loss history. So your loss runs, as it's called in the industry. All that is your claims history on your insurance policy. So he obtained that document that we needed in order to underwrite his insurance policy, and he's like, "What's this $112,000 claim?" And he had no idea that the interviewee got 110,000. He thought it was no big deal, maybe a couple $100, and he got that loss report, and it was $112,000, and now he can't
Wow.
get insurance coverage. He's getting turned down left and right by the everyday insurance carriers that a lot of people have in the industry. People go, we don't want that. The insurance companies, we don't
Sure.
want that exposure. So he's got to go to a tougher to place insurance market for the next 3 years until that falls off the record. But he had
Wow.
absolutely no idea that it paid out 112,000. He thought it was a couple $100.
Crazy. Well, you don't know what you don't know.
And now that person didn't need to go get a job.
Right.
Yeah.
They
Or
said
they
thank
found
you.
a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same person that went to the other one that was looking for a job too. You never know. Professional.
Hey, the scammers know how to scam.
You figure it out. Yeah.
All right. The next kind of thing we're going to talk about is just cleaning and sanitizing. So obviously, it's important to keep areas clean, sanitized, keeps pets safe. Also, you guys are working in wet environments. Dog accidents happen. So you want to make sure that you're wearing non-slip shoes. Just make sure your employees are practicing. If you see something on the ground that's slippery, wipe it up. We see a lot of slip and falls, and a lot of those back injuries are the most costly injuries that we see. So you want to make sure, you're taking care of your facility. It's as clean as it can be, and that you put into practice things like non-slip floors, slip-resistant shoes, and things like that. So let's jump to number 3. Zach, you're going to do this one.
So proper grouping and supervision. You want to always make sure that you are limiting the number of pets per employee or per supervisor, somebody supervising the pets, to keep a safe environment. Never break up fights using bare hands. We've had had an incident where an employee didn't have proper training on breaking up a fight during playtime, reached into a pet's mouth to break them up, and the dog bit down and she lost a finger. So she broke up the fight and turned around and saw something on the ground, realized it was her finger, picked it up, walked out of the play area, and that ended up being a pretty costly workers' comp claim. So again, another reason why to work with Dog Handlers Academy is so that your staff is properly trained on all these different things.
All right, next. Zach kind of hit on it already, but train and prepared staff, right? Hold weekly safety meetings, what to look for dog behavior. It takes a long time for somebody to kind of be able to read the animals. And so having regular staff meetings and regular trainings and what to do when emergencies happen. So, what do I do if the dogs get in a fight? What do I do if, when the employees slips and falls, or, have a procedure or a policy in place to take care of that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about a little bit about emergency health protocols, right? So what we always recommend is whenever there's an accident or an incident, and this form, I think will be emailed out to you with the recording of this webinar, but we've come up with a insurance claim incident report. This helps you know what information to collect when an accident happens to kind of protect yourself in the future. So if you know that, hey, this employee had a minor bite from a dog, you document that happened today around 2:00, and you took a picture of the bite, and you could tell that it wasn't a bad bite. When that employee that's disgruntled goes to sue you a year from now and said, hey, I was bit on this day, now you can pull these documents and say, hey, you know what? It was a superficial bite. This is the day that it happened. This is the incident that it happened. And it really protects yourself. And you give that to your attorney, like, here's the facts. So, have drills, have first aid kits available, have documentation ready to for incident reporting. And so those are kind of best practices and recommendations. Next, we're going to kind of go into a little bit of claims horror stories, which we actually hit on some of those. And we'll go through some common ones that some of them we've dealt with personally, and some of them we've found claims online or they've been in the industry. So first one we'll hit on here is, all right, dog daycare fight. So this is an incident that happened. I think this was actually one of our insureds in LA, where there was dogs that all got in a fight. And I think one of the dogs had a broken leg, and the claim ended up costing a total of like $18,000 just in vet bills alone. So that's something that you don't really think about, where it's an endorsement on a policy, the animal Bailey's coverage, that a lot of people in the industry don't know if they have or not. So that's one example.
Yeah. So I hear people say all the time, oh yeah, my agent told me it's going to be covered under my general liability, this being a pet getting injured in their care, which is not the case. Your liability insurance policy does not cover the pets in your care, you need specific writers, whether that's that professional liability writer or an animal Bailey's or animal floater insurance coverage. And so the pets that are injured in your care, again, animal Bailey's, professional liability, depending on the situation.
So next one is going to be, around workers' compensation claims. So dog bites a staff member in the head or in the hand. Well, we've had them in the head too,
Yeah.
but in the hand, causing puncture wounds. Employees required an ER visit, booster shots, and they're off of work for 2 weeks, right? So that claim cost, you don't think about it like, oh, it's just a dog bite. But anytime if you've been to the hospital lately for something and you get that bill, yeah, it's kind of mind blowing. So in this example, claim cost $32,000, medical bills, lost wages since that happened on the job. That's another example.
And that's a pretty mild incident. We've had some absolute crazy ones. The finger that got bit off, well, that was a $46,000 finger. But then there's disability. There's partial disability that employee is going to suffer for the rest of their life. So that claim expense ends up getting much more severe. We had one where they were doing a meet and greet with a dog. Well, the dog wasn't as friendly. A golden retriever thought the employee thought the golden retriever was friendly. Got down in the dog's face. Again, improper employee training. Well, the dog took her ear. Bit her ear off. It was a $300,000 reconstructive surgery to have her ear put back on. And yeah, so proper staff training is very important to the longevity of your business.
I think we should talk about that one a little bit because was that an employee or was that a dog daycare owner?
That was an owner.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was an owner. And she had actually excluded herself on her work comp policy.
Oh.
Yeah. So to give some more insight into that, as a business owner, anybody that owns 10% or more of their business, they can either elect to have insurance coverage, work comp coverage on themselves, or they can exclude themselves from the insurance policy. Most people think, I'm the owner. I don't want to cover myself. I don't want to pay for that expense. I'm not going to sue myself.
I'll never sue myself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Right. Like,
Yep. I'm never going to sue myself. Well, she got her ear taken off and she goes to the hospital and the hospital says, oh, you got bit by a dog. Yeah. Well, who's the dog owner? Well, that doesn't matter. It's one of my clients. What do you mean it's one of your clients? Oh, because what the intake person of the nurse is trying to find out for the insurance company is who are we going to put these medical expenses on, i.e.
Correct.
we want to sue the pet owner. Well, because she's running her business, she can't sue the pet owner because she's responsible for taking care of the pets. She's operating her business. So her health declining to pay for those $300,000 in medical expenses. She was excluded on her work comp policy. She had to pay that out of pocket. The cost difference of having her included on her work comp policy versus excluded was $1,600 a year. So when I'm talking with clients and they're telling me they want to be excluded, my follow-up question is, well, do you work at the facility? Are you involved every day and around the pets? Well, if you are 100%, I recommend you to have the insurance coverage. You don't know what can happen. Completely different. If you're, an investor behind the scenes and you're not paying and you're not in the facility at all and around the pets, exclude yourself all day long. But yeah, that was a really tough conversation to have. And we changed our business practices after that to say every single person is getting a work comp coverage if they're working with the pets, getting a work comp proposal or getting recommendations if they're working with the pets. They can elect to cover themselves or not. And I'm okay with whatever their decision is because it's their business, their expense. That's fine. But I've got to do my due diligence and make sure everybody, if you're working with the pets, we're recommending you have the coverage. This is the cost difference. You decide.
sure. And there's different variations, right? I just remember when I was filling out all of my insurance paperwork, I have 3 receptionists. Okay, what's their job role? Are they in with the pets or not in with the pets? The person
Yeah.
who drives the barky bus, you know, what's their role? So like there's various levels to that, correct?
So those are considered work comp class codes.
There
So
we go.
when we're underwriting an insurance policy, we're asking, hey, what sort of jobs, what are your job duties of each of these employees? Oh, this one's just an office admin. He or she just does bookkeeping, scheduling, routing, and doesn't ever come in contact with any of the pets. Where this one's an attendant in the facility and handles the group plays. Well, the exposure is completely different. You know,
Right.
me in my industry, I sit in a desk all day. I'm a desk jockey.
It's paper cut.
I get a paper cut. I'm gonna trip over my
Workman's
desk.
comp.
Yeah, a lot different than working with the pets or being a groomer.
Sure.
Scaring the dogs all day long. So that's something that you should be talking with your insurance agent so that they have a good understanding of, hey, what does this person do? What's their role? Where does their payroll fall? So I can determine what class code they need to go in. So again, that person that's just answering the phone, just doing paperwork, completely different than the dog trainer or the dog groomer. And so those are called work comp class codes.
100%. And as the owner, even if you're absentee and you occasionally come in and cover, you should still have yourself covered because you know what? Because you occasionally come in and cover, you are more likely to screw up.
Yep. Not be as in tune to the behavior that you should be.
Correct. And or, you know what? Oh, I just threw on these shoes, right? You're not wearing the proper shoes. You're not wearing the proper attire. You're just not, you know, you're not as comfortable and confident in the environment, the physical environment as well. So, yeah, I usually tell people don't exclude yourself. It's just not the right, it's not worth it. It's not the right move. That's not where you're going to save a buck.
Nope. No. 300,000. That was a really rough conversation.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I'm just like in my head going, okay, where'd my EBITDA go? Right? Like,
Yep.
the IRS is going to see I just had to pay myself a shit ton more money to cover that bill. So they're going to wonder what special things did I do that year that I needed to make an extra $300,000 to
Yeah,
cover
you
that
can't write
bill.
off the ear.
Right?
I mean, they got it back
Have that
on.
talk with your accountant.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Keep going.
So we're at the Q&A spot. So I don't know. I think a few questions have
Oh,
come
yes. Pop on in here. Let me get to those. Well, someone had a great recommendation. They only show pets on camera versus going back in our daycare and boarding suites. Phenomenal. I recommend
Yep.
people have a virtual tour on their website even. Doesn't need to be fancy. Just run through your facility, shoot a little video and put it up there, which is great. Heather's got that incident report on there. Love that as well. A couple additional questions that came in. So if you have groomers or trainers that are 1099s, now this gets to be controversial. But if you do have them, should you request that you are listed on their insurance policy?
You should. And you should probably contact legal counsel to determine whether they are true 1099 contractors or subcontractors. But
Right.
before any true subcontractor works for me, if I was in your shoes, I would make sure that they have an insurance policy in place and name me or my business as an additional insured on that policy. And prior to me bringing that person in, I'm going to talk with my legal counsel to determine if I am abiding by the law.
Yeah, every state's a little bit different. California, it's like there's pretty much no such thing as a 1099. It's like pretty much impossible.
Yeah, they need to be truly offering a complete outside service. So let's say I'm a dog daycare facility and I don't offer grooming, but I want to offer that service to my clients. It has nothing to do with my facility, but I might bring in somebody that does training, for example. We're just strictly an overnight boarding facility, and just a dog daycare, but occasionally we might contract a trainer to come in and do some training. Well, if that person is not an employee, a staff member, then again, we need to make sure that they have insurance coverage. Business is additional insured.
Perfect. So groomer is an employee, but they bring their own tools. How does that come into play from an insurance liability perspective if like the building were to burn down?
Well, if they're an employee, you're as the employer responsible for your employee. If your employee brings their own shears and clippers, that's not an issue. You're going to be,
Still
I mean, if those, yeah,
still
if
covered.
those burn down the building or whatever, they're an employee, and that was as a result of your business operations and that employee. So your insurance, it's not going to void your insurance contract.
Gotcha. Canine cough coverage. Worth
It
it, not
exists.
worth it?
It exists. There's only a few insurance companies. It limits the number of different insurance companies that you're going to be able to have if you want.
States.
And states, yep. Depends on the state that you're in, whether you can get the coverage or not. It's in most cases, the coverage limits are pretty low to where it doesn't make sense, but it all depends on your business and the size of your facility as well. And the coverage limits that you get. I commonly will see like $5,000 of kennel cough coverage. Well, what, if you're running a large facility, what's that $5,000 of kennel cough coverage really going to do when your revenue is a few $1,000s a day? It doesn't provide much protection now, and you might be paying a very high premium for that coverage because your overall policy is based on your revenue, and you might be paying $1,000 extra for a year for $5,000 of coverage. And again, depending on the size of your business, some claims you don't want to file. You want to pay out of pocket yourself because you're going to then pay a higher insurance premium for years, for typically 3 to 5 years moving forward for filing a claim. So we'll get a lot of people that might call saying, hey, I have a pet was injured in our care. It was a $500 vet bill. I have the animal Bailey's coverage. It's got a $100 deductible. I want to file this claim. Okay, well, do you really want to file the claim? Because the insurance company is going to get their money back for over the
Right.
next duration of time. Like the insurance policy, it's not a maintenance policy. It's for the big stuff. The pet that got the extra insulin and it was a $18,000 vet bill. Well, okay, you could justify paying your filing a claim on something like that, but the $200-300 animal Bailey's claim, pay it out of pocket. Have a slush fund set aside for the small stuff. Wait for the big stuff, unless you want to pay more, because in the long run you're going to end up paying more because your insurance policy is going to be surcharged. So there's things that the insurance company doesn't just look at the severity of the claim, they look at frequency as well. If you have a bunch of small claims, well,
You're not safe.
they know you're
Right.
not safe because something big's going to come eventually.
Right.
What we do with our clients is we like to have a conversation and educate before we go ahead and just file a claim. And Chaz alluded to it a little bit earlier. Actually, that was on a phone call prior to us jumping on this. He was talking to a facility. We had talked to somebody that we met out at the Vegas pet boarding show, and he was a mobile groomer, and he had a lot of small claims, like $1,000.
Well, first of all, he had like a fleet of like 12 vehicles. And yeah, a lot of
$1,200 claims,
windshield repair.
$1,500 claims, stuff that he was then paying $30,000 a year for filing these $1,000 and $2,000 little claims with his big fleet, and it just financially it ends up ruining the business because he wasn't educated on what he should be filing a claim for and what.
I mean, he's filing claims. So the deductible is $1,000 and he's filing a $1,500 claim. So he's getting $500 back.
For $500.
And then,
Yeah.
So you got like 6 or 7 of those in a year. And then your renewal is 30,000 more. It's like, claim the big stuff, you hit somebody in a crosswalk and knock over some lady. I mean, we talked a little bit about claims, horror stories, but we've had ones where somebody's going to pick up a dog from the front door. Dog gets off the leash, hits a 85-year-old lady, falls over, breaks a hip's, hospitalized for 7 days. Like things that you don't think about that you're like, hey, that's like a couple $100,000 just from a dog
Right.
knocking over somebody,
Yep.
you know?
Hey, yeah, those things happen. They definitely happen. Um, two more questions here. On top of all of this type of insurance, is an Aflac type of insurance needed?
Is that a disability?
This is a disability policy.
Yeah.
Well, your workers' compensation isn't going to provide coverage if something happens outside of work. Work comp is only work-related injuries. Most disability policies do not cover work-related injuries. So we're talking about two separate insurance policies. If you fall off your horse on a Saturday afternoon and you're not at work and you break your back, your work comp policy isn't going to cover that. Your health insurance will, but you might then have a disability. That's where that
Permanently.
Aflac and the disability insurance would come in. So you think
Okay.
work comp for anything work related, something happens outside of work, well, your standard health insurance or disability insurance policy is gonna cover you.
As an owner, should I have key person policy insurance?
It's a good idea depending on the size of the business. So
It's not
how
a huge risk, would you say? Or
well, it depends. I mean, if I was driving home after this and I got in a car accident and died, you're gonna lose.
my number one producer?
Yeah, you're gonna lose.
I'm like, where is this going? We're getting really dark here.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. I mean, the key man life insurance coverage can keep the business afloat if one of those most important or one of the very important employees is no longer or owners is no
So it's
longer
meant to
involved.
help cover you bringing in somebody to cover that,
Yes.
which is important. I mean, I'm just thinking like, yeah, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow.
Well, you think about like In and Out here in California, the whole family was in that plane crash, and that's like the daughter is running the whole thing. Yeah, things that you don't think about, but they happen.
Absolutely. Can you then insure, like, could we insure our manager for that?
I don't know. I
Mm.
don't know.
Oh my gosh, I just
I
stumped
think,
you.
yeah,
Mm.
I don't do too much of it. I've maybe written one or two key man life insurance policies overall, but I think they have to be an owner in the business in order to
Okay.
get the
I was just
coverage.
thinking if you're an
Or a
absentee
board
owner.
member.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Food for thought. See?
Look at that. Now I got some homework to do.
And here he thought he was just presenting all the things, right? All right. Looks like those were all the good questions that were in the chats here. And I need to apologize. Apparently, the link that we all hopped in on was a different link than what we emailed to all of you. So we did
Oh,
send
no.
out an updated email link and posted on our Facebook page as well. So we did get some people popping in and asking questions. Quite a few people messaging that they'll catch us on the replay. So if you are catching us on the replay, certainly if you have additional questions, we can provide the contact information. And then you do have that incident report form. Walk us through this incident report form. I kind of opened it up on my other screen here.
Yeah, I can walk you through it real quick. So the whole idea is to capture as much information as you can when an incident happens. So the form is meant to be a lot of data points because that helps an attorney or somebody kind of identify how risky it was. So my experience, I was in the grocery industry and we got sued for people slipping all the time. So this is kind
Sure.
of like a form that what environmental factors were at play when that person walked into your boarding facility? Was it rainy? How was the lighting? So the whole idea is to capture when an event happened, what pieces of data did you collect? Did you add CCTV footage of the incident? That's saved me many times where I've had somebody slip in the produce department and you replay the video and they put the grape on the ground and then they went and pretended to slip and fall and you have the video recording of it and you show it to the judge and the judge is like, yeah, you put that there. So this type of report is just a way to collect as much information as you can. Should something in the future, and then you file it away, and that way you have it. Because a lot of times, you would have something that maybe happened 2 years prior that you get named in a lawsuit, and you're like, "What is this from? What happened 2 years ago on a rainy, afternoon?" And you go through your file. Oh, here's the incident that happened. Well, I got the video saved in this file. I got pictures of, the slip and fall. There wasn't a broken leg. There was, they didn't hit their head. And so that is basically to collect as much data as you can to kind of, ammunition to protect yourself as a business owner.
No, absolutely. I know I harp all the time. Doesn't cost anything to take a picture or a video, right?
Yep.
If you're like, hey, this dog had this, we just had an incident, Scotty, we come in the morning and it looks like a massacre because the tail is bleeding and it was like a slice on the top of the tail, so it's everywhere. I mean, we've all been there, done that. And I'm like, okay, like the dog was fine when it went in. It was fine on last let outs. It's on the tail. So I'm like, everybody check your pants. Like who touched the dog last? Like it'll be obvious because you'll have blood on your pants. Like who, look at this, look at that. And everybody's like, there was no blood last night. It had to have happened overnight. I'm like, but the slit is on the top of the tail. Like it's not the tip of the tail. I'm like, were they running and the dog got tagged in the tail? And they're like, he's in the old man group. None of them run around. Like they just saunter out. And it was 9 to 10:30 potty time. It was bedtime. So like they saunter out, they pee, they saunter back in. I'm like, well, somebody had to have tagged the tail, maybe stepped on it. Well, it's not that long of it. I'm like, well, it's got to be something. Like based on location, there's something. And now it's a bloody hot mess. So, wrap the tail, send mom an email. She's a very particular lady. And so I was like waiting for the repercussions. And she emails back. She's like, oh, I don't think anything happened to him. He's got allergies and he chews on his tail all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, seriously?
And then
Like,
that's why you go add to the report, contacted the customer. Here's a copy of the email saying he chews on his tail all the time.
absolutely. Yep. Oh, I mean, like I'd taken pictures and like, I was waiting because I was like, this owner is gonna get spicy with me. And she was like, oh yeah, no, he chews on his tail all the time. It happens all the time. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, notes in there, notes in his account. Yeah, yep. I had already started the incident report. We'd already documented time so that way we could go back and look at all of our videos and I was ready. I was ready. Fully prepared, fully prepared. So I greatly appreciate you guys popping on here with us, giving us all this detail. You want to put in the chat for us real quick here, guys, your contact information. So if people are looking to evaluate their insurance, when should they be doing this? Like 3 months before their insurance is due, 6 months, a month? Give us a timeline.
Well, you should definitely make sure that you have the insurance coverage that you need for your business.
There's number one.
Number one, right off the bat. Do I have general liability, professional liability, animal Bailey's coverage, property? If I've got property, if I've got a vehicle for my business, you would know right off the bat whether you have a commercial insurance policy or personal insurance policy. And
Right.
then work comp coverage, typically you should not be moving midterm because there's short rate cancellation penalties. In some cases, you're significantly overpaying and it makes sense to move your work comp policy midterm. That's pretty rare. If your policies are coming up for renewal, definitely make sure you go through them with a fine tooth comb. You talk to your agent. It's always recommended that you work with an agent that is very familiar with the industry, potentially working with an agent that only works with pet related businesses or has extensive knowledge in the space. Because again, I mentioned this earlier, the amount of times I've heard somebody say, oh, my agent said it's covered by my liability policy, one of the pet's injuries. No, that's not the case whatsoever. Number one, give a quick review of your insurance policies. Look for some of those hot items that we talked about during today's session. And anytime's a good time to review your insurance policies to make sure that you've got what you need.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, this has been very informative. Thank you so much. And those of you watching the replay again, feel free to reach out to them if you have questions, or you can always send them over to Dog Handler Academy, and we will certainly forward it on to them. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. We do have another webinar coming up in November. That one is shortly after the Pet Boarding and Daycare Expo. So you'll see Dog Handler Academy next at APDT in Richmond, Virginia, the first week of November. Then we're at Hershey for the Pet Boarding and Daycare Expo, Hershey, Pennsylvania, which you guys will be joining us at. So if you're going to be at that event, definitely stop by their booth. Bring your insurance policy. Make a copy. That's probably one of the easiest ways to to start the conversation. This is what I currently have. Tell me if I'm in the right place or not, and then go from there. So definitely appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.